Brothers and sisters, you've been lied to, you've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok. The system you trust, the so-called American system, was never built for you. It was built to contain you, to exploit you, to feed off your sweat, your labor, your pain. And when you finally open your eyes, when you finally stand up and say, enough is enough, that's when they fear you. That's when they try to silence you. This system wasn't designed to bring justice. It was designed to maintain power. White power, corporate power, police power. You think you're free because you can vote, because you can shop in their stores or ride in the front of their buses. That's not freedom. That's a leash with a longer chain. They let you feel like you're choosing when every option was pre-selected to keep you begging, struggling, surviving, never thriving. Look at the ghettos. Look at the housing. Look at the schools. Look at the prisons. Don't you dare believe that's a coincidence. That's not some unfortunate accident of history. It's intentional. It's systematic. It's by design. You were written out of the American dream before the ink on the Constitution even dried. They don't teach you your history. They don't teach you your strength. They teach you submission. They teach you obedience. They teach you to love your oppressor and hate yourself. They teach you to be proud of a flag that never protected you and to salute a system that profits from your suffering. And yet, some of our own people are so quick to defend that same system. Some of us would rather kneel for crumbs than stand for truth. Some would rather blend in than speak out. But you can't reform what was built to oppress. You can't talk your way out of chains. You don't beg a system for freedom. You take it. Now listen, I'm not talking about violence for the sake of violence. I'm talking about self-defense. I'm talking about dignity. I'm talking about standing up like a man, like a woman, like a human being, and saying no more. You don't turn the other cheek when your very existence is under attack. You don't pray your way out of a burning house. You find the water and put out the fire. The American system was never built to uplift the oppressed. It was built to exploit and control them. This is not a metaphor, this is not a misinterpretation, and it is certainly not a glitch in the fabric of the so-called American dream. From its foundation, from the very first brick laid on stolen land with stolen labor, this system was engineered to benefit a few at the cost of the many. The wealth of this country was extracted from the backs of enslaved Africans, built on the graves of Native Americans, expanded through colonization, and maintained through structural inequality and institutional racism. Every promise that came after freedom, democracy, equality was crafted not for the oppressed, but to pacify them. It was never intended for everyone. It was propaganda to maintain obedience. The founding documents are often quoted with reverence, but they are empty words when viewed from the perspective of those whose humanity was denied. All men are created equal rang hollow to the slave chained to a post. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness meant nothing to the indigenous people watching their lands burned and their cultures erased. These ideals were written by men who owned other human beings, who saw profit in human suffering, and who passed laws that defined personhood through race and property. To understand the system, you must understand its architects, and they didn't design it for justice, they designed it for control. Look at the way the economy works. It's not about creating opportunity, it's about hoarding wealth. The labor of the working class, particularly black and brown workers, is undervalued, exploited, and commodified. The minimum wage isn't enough to live on, but it's enough to keep you working. Just enough to keep you too tired to resist. The education system trains you to follow rules, not to ask questions. It doesn't teach critical thinking, it teaches compliance. It doesn't teach you your history, it teaches you their version of history. One that erases resistance, glorifies oppression, and justifies the power structure. The schools in the inner cities are not underfunded by accident. The food deserts, the crumbling infrastructure, the over-policing, it's all part of a system that functions exactly as it was meant to, not broken, operating as designed. You are taught to admire the system. You are taught to be loyal to it. You are taught to believe that if you just work hard enough, play by the rules, keep your head down, and wait your turn, you'll be rewarded. But generations have waited, struggled, marched, protested, prayed, and died, and the system remains unchanged. The wealth gap grows, the prison population swells. The police continue to act as an occupying force in our communities. The media tells you that change is happening, but the evidence around you tells a different story. You can't reform what was never meant to serve you. You can't fix a machine that was engineered to chew you up and spit you out. Take a look at the criminal justice system. From stop and frisk policies to mandatory minimums, from cash bail to private prisons, every aspect is rigged to entrap and exploit. Black and brown people are targeted, arrested, and sentenced at rates wildly disproportionate to their white counterparts, not because they commit more crime, but because the system profits from their punishment. Prison labor is modern-day slavery. Corporations benefit from cages. Judges and prosecutors build careers on convictions, not justice. Police unions protect killers in uniform. And when people take to the streets, they are labeled rioters, not freedom fighters. The system uses law and order not to maintain peace, but to maintain power. And what about healthcare? It's a business. If you're poor, if you're uninsured, you're disposable. If you can't afford the medicine, if you can't afford the treatment, if you can't afford the hospital stay, too bad. The pharmaceutical companies make billions while people die from treatable conditions. Insurance executives collect bonuses while children suffer. The system doesn't see you as a human being. It sees you as a statistic, a cost, a liability, a number on a spreadsheet. Even your vote, the sacred pillar of democracy, is manipulated. Districts are gerrymandered to dilute your power. Voter ID laws, purge rolls, limited polling places, they all serve the same goal: keep the marginalized from influencing policy. They tell you to believe in the system, but every time you try to engage with it, you're met with barriers. You're met with red tape. You're met with bureaucracy designed not to help you, but to exhaust you. And when you're too tired to fight, too beaten down to speak up, the system wins. You're told the American system is about freedom, but that freedom is conditional. You can speak, but not too loudly. You can protest, but not disrupt. You can dream, but only within their limits. The moment you challenge the structure, the moment you expose the hypocrisy, you become a threat. That's when surveillance begins. That's when your name ends up on a list. That's when your job disappears. That's when your phone is tapped. The system doesn't protect dissent, it punishes it. They use entertainment to distract you. They use social media to divide you. They use religion to pacify you. They use fear to control you. You are surrounded by tools of manipulation masquerading as freedom. Every television channel, every radio host, every news outlet that doesn't tell you the truth is complicit in the machine. They do not inform, they indoctrinate. They do not empower, they distract. This system is not broken. It is thriving. Thriving on inequality, thriving on ignorance, thriving on silence. It doesn't need fixing. It needs exposing. It needs confronting. And to do that, you must first understand that you are not crazy for seeing the injustice. You are not paranoid for noticing the pattern. You are not wrong for refusing to be silent. You are waking up. You are seeing clearly. You are recognizing that the American system doesn't serve you because it was never built to. Freedom within the system is an illusion designed to maintain power and obedience. It's the prettiest Lee ever told, wrapped in red, white, and blue and sold to you like salvation. But freedom in this system doesn't mean what they say it does. It's not about rights. It's not about justice. It's about control. It's about making you believe you're free while every move you make is monitored, guided, and contained. They give you just enough to make you think you have power, but never enough to actually challenge theirs. It's not freedom if you're trapped in a cycle of poverty. It's not freedom if your choices are poisoned by fear, if your options are limited by your zip code, your skin color, your income, your background. That's not liberty. That's manipulation. You are told that you are free to choose, to vote, to speak, to live your life as you see fit. But from the moment you're born into this system, the conditions of your life are dictated by structures far beyond your control. Where you live, what kind of education you receive, what kind of job you'll be able to get, whether you'll be targeted by police, whether you'll be healthy or sick, whether you'll be heard or ignored, all of it is shaped by forces that pretend to offer choice while engineering obedience. You grow up pledging allegiance to a system that keeps you confined. You sing songs about liberty while living under surveillance. You celebrate independence while being economically enslaved. That's the contradiction they don't want you to notice. The system doesn't need to shackle your body anymore. It shackles your mind. It makes you think you're the problem when the deck has been stacked against you since birth. You're told to work hard and you'll succeed. But how many work themselves into the grave and still can't afford a home, still can't escape debt, still live paycheck to paycheck? How many do everything they were told and still end up broken, beaten down, and blamed? You are told the streets are free, but walk in the wrong neighborhood with the wrong skin, and you'll find out just how quickly that illusion disappears. You are told your voice matters, but only if it doesn't challenge the system. You are told the law protects you, but only if you never become a threat to those in power. They say you're free because you can buy things. You can choose between a dozen brands of cereal, 100 channels of mindless distraction, 10 types of phones built by invisible workers in forgotten corners of the world. But economic choice is not freedom when your necessities are monopolized. It's not freedom when your health care, your water, your education, your safety all come with price tags. It's not freedom if the only way to survive is to sell your labor to someone richer than you, someone who decides your hours, your pay, your worth. That's not independence, that's economic servitude wrapped in a smile. They want you to believe that obedience is patriotism, that submission is honor, that silence is respect. They train you to celebrate the system even as it crushes you. They teach you to fear stepping out of line, to fear the loss of the little crumbs they've given you, to fear being labeled ungrateful or radical or dangerous. You're told to follow the rules while the rule makers bend and break them at will. You're told to respect the law while the powerful rewrite it to serve themselves. You're told to trust institutions that have lied to you for generations, covered up crimes, protected predators, robbed entire communities of hope and dignity. What they fear most is not your violence, it's your clarity. It's your awareness. It's your refusal to play the role they assigned you. Because once you start asking questions, once you start connecting dots, once you start realizing that what you've been sold is not freedom but a performance meant to keep you passive, they panic. That's when the system shows its teeth. That's when protesters are beaten. That's when whistleblowers are jailed. That's when black leaders are assassinated. That's when the media shifts from reporting to smearing. The system will tolerate anything except truth. They use elections to create the illusion of power. You get to choose between two faces of the same structure, both funded by the same corporations, both loyal to the same class. And they tell you that's democracy. They tell you your vote is your voice, and once it's cast, you should sit down and be quiet until the next cycle. They don't tell you that real democracy lives in the streets, in the organizing, in the resistance. They don't tell you that voting without economic power is like whispering in a hurricane. They don't tell you that real change has always come from outside the system, from people who refuse to be silent, who refuse to be obedient. You are free to speak until your words carry truth. You are free to protest until you disrupt. You are free to exist until your existence threatens the order. This is not freedom. It's containment. It's the velvet cage. It's the golden leash. They don't need to beat you into submission if they can teach you to submit yourself. That's what the system has perfected. Not just the mechanisms of control, but the appearance of freedom. They've weaponized symbols. They've made the flag a blindfold. They've made the anthem a lullaby. They've made your pride in the system a chain around your own neck. But even the most convincing illusion begins to crack. Even the most polished lie can't hold when people start waking up. When workers realize their value, when students demand truth, when mothers refuse to bury another child, when communities rise and say no more, that's when the illusion begins to tremble. Because freedom, real freedom, is not given by a system. It is claimed by those who know they deserve more than the crumbs they've been fed. It is taken by those who see through the lies and choose not to obey. True change cannot come through reforming a system rooted in oppression. It must be confronted and dismantled. When a house is built on a crooked foundation, no amount of paint or decoration can make it stable. You can't fix a building that was designed to collapse on certain people. You can't clean up a structure that was built to exploit, to dehumanize, to divide. Reform is the language of delay. Reform is what they offer when they want to appear concerned, but have no intention of giving up power. Reform is the leash they use to drag you back into believing the system has a heart when all it has is a wallet and a whip. You've been told to wait. You've been told to be patient. You've been told that progress is slow, that change takes time, that revolution is too dangerous, too radical, too disruptive. But they never say that to the ones in power. They never tell the billionaires to be patient while the poor starve. They never tell the police to wait before they shoot. They never tell the corporations to slow down while they strip resources, pollute communities, and buy lawmakers. Time has never been a luxury the oppressed could afford. Change delayed is justice denied, and reform is the tool of that delay. Every movement that shook the foundations of this country was not born from reform, it was born from confrontation. The abolition of slavery didn't come because a few kind-hearted politicians rethought the economy. It came from rebellion. It came from fire. It came from blood. Women didn't win the right to vote by being polite. Workers didn't win their rights by asking nicely. Civil rights weren't won in the back rooms of Congress. They were won in the streets, in jail cells, in the cries of people who refuse to be ignored. Confrontation is not chaos, it's clarity. It's the moment when truth refuses to bow. The system is designed to preserve itself. It adapts just enough to survive, but never enough to transform. They will change the language. They will change the faces. They will make symbolic gestures. But they will not touch the core, because the core of this system is built on exploitation, on profits over people, on race-based hierarchy, on fear as policy, on lies as governance. Reform means changing a few gears while keeping the engine running. Dismantling means shutting it down and building something different. Something that begins with human dignity instead of institutional greed. They will tell you dismantling is dangerous, that it leads to lawlessness, that it invites collapse. But what they don't tell you is that what you're living in is collapse. What they don't tell you is that law and order has always meant order for the powerful and law against the powerless. What they don't tell you is that the greatest danger is staying silent in a burning house. They protect the system not because it works for everyone, but because it works for them. And they know that if enough people see through the illusion, the system itself becomes the target, not just its symptoms. Look around and see what reform has given us. Decades of empty promises, policies with loopholes, justice that picks and chooses who is worthy of it, schools that still fail our children, prisons that still consume our men, streets patrolled by armed agents of the state who kill without consequence. Reform has not stopped the killing. Reform has not closed the wealth gap. Reform has not returned stolen land. Reform has not repaired generational trauma. Reform has become the excuse for inaction, a way to sell hope while delivering oppression in a prettier box. You cannot reform greed out of capitalism. You cannot reform racism out of white supremacy. You cannot reform brutality out of policing when policing itself was born from slave patrols and colonial militias. You cannot reform a healthcare system that sees patients as profit. You cannot reform a military that exists to enforce empire. These are not broken pieces. They are central features. And if you're fixing something that was made to hurt you, then you're not fixing it. You're helping it function better. True change comes from pressure. It comes from refusal. It comes from disruption. Power does not concede because it suddenly becomes moral. Power concedes when it's forced to. And that force is not always physical. It's strategic, it's cultural, it's economic, it's spiritual. It's people standing together and refusing to participate in their own oppression. It's boycotts, it's walkouts, it's organizing communities, shutting down pipelines, blocking evictions, exposing corruption, refusing to cooperate with a system that profits from your silence. And the reason they hate those who speak this truth is because it threatens the fantasy. The fantasy that this country is always improving. The fantasy that freedom can be granted from above. The fantasy that justice can be administered by the same hands that wrote the laws to deny it. When you say the system must be dismantled, you become the mirror they cannot look into. Because you remind them that the ground beneath their feet was stolen. That their comfort came at a cost. That their institutions are built with blood-stained bricks. Those in power will co-opt your language. They will adopt your slogans. They will kneel in front of cameras while funding the very forces that kneel on necks. They will post black squares and diversity statements while firing the first person who speaks up. They will pretend to listen while building bigger walls, more prisons, harsher laws. Because they know the real threat isn't your anger. It's your clarity. It's the moment you realize that fixing the system is not your goal. Breaking it is. And what comes after that breaking must be rooted in truth, in reparations, in collective ownership, in communities controlling their own resources, their own safety, their own future, in education that tells the whole history, in healthcare that heals instead of harvests, in leadership that emerges from the people, not appointed by elites, in a culture where human life matters more than property, more than borders, more than profits. But none of that is possible if you still believe that reform will save you. None of that can begin until you stop asking for permission from a system that was never made to include you. Awakening unity and self-determination are the only paths to liberation from systemic deception. Until people wake up, nothing changes. Until the blindfold of propaganda is ripped away, the same lies will be repeated. The same chains will be accepted. The same masters will be obeyed. Awakening is not simply learning a new fact. It's understanding how deeply you've been lied to, how skillfully you've been conditioned to participate in your own oppression. They've trained you to trust the very institutions that harm you. They've trained you to look at your neighbor with suspicion instead of looking at the system with clarity. Awakening is that moment when you stop believing the surface and begin questioning the root. When you stop asking what's wrong with yourself and start asking what's wrong with the world that told you to hate yourself. When you realize your pain is not isolated. It's part of a pattern, part of a design, part of a legacy. But awakening alone is not enough. You can wake up and still be isolated. You can wake up and still be alone. And this system depends on that isolation. It thrives when you feel powerless. It thrives when you believe no one else sees what you see. That's why unity is the next step. Because once you realize you are not alone, you become dangerous to the system. Unity does not mean agreement on everything. Unity means understanding who the real enemy is. Unity means coming together across differences to fight the structure that oppresses us all. They will use every tool they have to divide you. They will weaponize race, religion, gender, geography, class. They will tell you that your struggle is not the same as theirs, that your pain is more important than someone else's. But that is a trap. The house is burning, and it doesn't matter which room you're in when the flames come. The only way out is together. Unity means organizing. It means building power from the ground up, not waiting for saviors from above. It means recognizing that no politician, no celebrity, no institution will liberate you. It means building networks of trust, communication, defense, education, survival. It means reclaiming your time, your voice, your agency. And most of all, it means committing to something greater than yourself. Because the system will try to wear you down, it will try to exhaust you, distract you, tempt you, silence you. But when you are united, you are resilient. When you are united, you are ungovernable by injustice. When you are united, you can no longer be controlled through fear, and then comes self-determination, the final key, the most powerful weapon. Self-determination means not just resisting oppression, but building something new in its place. It means no longer asking for inclusion in a broken system, but building systems that reflect your values, your needs, your truth. It means refusing to play their game, refusing to speak their language of exploitation, refusing to measure your worth by their standards. It means creating your own schools, your own media, your own economic systems, your own safety networks. It means controlling your own narrative, writing your own history, defining your own future. They do not want you to be self-determined. They want you dependent. They want you always asking, always pleading, always negotiating. Because when you stop asking and start acting, the balance of power shifts. Self-determination is a threat because it means no longer needing their approval. It means walking away from their table and building your own. It means no longer being a pawn in their politics, no longer being a token in their institutions, no longer being a worker who produces everything but owns nothing. It means standing tall without apology, without compromise, without fear. The system survives through deception, through convincing you that you are powerless, that you are alone, that you must wait. Awakening destroys the illusion. Unity builds strength. Self-determination creates a new reality. And once those three forces move together, they are unstoppable. That is what history teaches. That is what the people in power fear. That is why every movement that carried these three truths was met with bullets, prisons, surveillance, sabotage. Because once the oppressed believe in their own power, the system knows it cannot win. They will always try to make you doubt yourself. They will flood you with distractions. They will elevate false leaders. They will infiltrate your movements. They will whisper comfort in one ear and fear in the other. They will try to convince you that radical means violent, that resistance is hate, that fighting back is dangerous. But you must remember, what's truly dangerous is accepting a world where suffering is normal, where injustice is routine, where your children inherit the same chains you were born with. What's truly dangerous is silence in the face of oppression. What's truly dangerous is believing that obedience is peace. Awakening is a spark. Unity is the fire. Self-determination is the forge. Together they create something no system can contain. That's why they try to break your spirit before you even begin. That's why they bury you in debt, bury you in lies, bury you in hopelessness. But seeds buried in darkness still grow. Truth buried under centuries of oppression still finds its way to the light. Once it begins to rise, no amount of force can stop it. Once the people know they have the right to exist on their own terms, no amount of propaganda can confuse them again. Once a community starts feeding itself, healing itself, defending itself, and educating itself, it no longer needs permission to be free. And the moment you stop needing permission, you become a force they cannot control.